You think you know the story of Snow White. You've seen the animated saccharine, the simplified morality play, the sanitized version presented for mass consumption. But that's not the story. That's the surface. A comforting illusion drawn over a much deeper, much more terrifying, and ultimately, much more truthful narrative. Consider the Queen. She is not merely vain. That's a trivialization. She is the embodiment of pathological envy, of the destructive impulse that seeks to annihilate anything that shines, anything that represents genuine being, genuine beauty, genuine truth. Her mirror is not just a tool for self-admiration, it is the constant, inescapable judgment of reality itself, reflecting back to her the uncomfortable truth of her own decaying soul, her own descent into malevolence. And what does she do? She doesn't seek to improve herself, she seeks to destroy the very thing that exposes her inadequacy. This is the tyrannical impulse writ large, the desire to eradicate truth because it inconveniently highlights one's own corruption. Snow White, then, is not merely passive innocence. Her very existence, her radiant being, is an affront to the Queen's twisted will. Her beauty is a form of truth, and truth, when confronted by malevolence, often finds itself cast out into the wilderness. The forest is not just a pretty backdrop, it is chaos itself, the primordial unknown, where the rules of the structured world dissolve. She is thrust into the terrifying abyss, the place where order breaks down, and she must find a way to navigate it. And the dwarves. They offer a temporary refuge, a small industrious pocket of order within the chaos. They are the collective, perhaps the grounded, practical aspects of the human psyche, capable of work and routine, but ultimately limited in their capacity to confront the ultimate malevolence that pursues her. They can provide shelter, but not salvation from the deepest threats. The apple, it's not just a fruit, it's the seductive lie, the poisoned promise, the ultimate betrayal of innocence by the very force that seeks to devour it. It's the malevolent act disguised as a gift, the insidious whisper that promises comfort while delivering destruction. And she falls for it, as we all do, because the lie often presents itself as the easiest path, the most appealing solution to suffering. But then the prince, he is not merely a romantic figure, he is the redeeming masculine principle, the force that can confront the death-like grip of chaos and malevolence. He is the one who can see past the immediate, the superficial, and recognize the profound truth that has been silenced, seemingly extinguished. His kiss is not just a kiss, it is the awakening of consciousness, the restoration of order, the re-establishment of the proper hierarchy where truth and beauty can once again breathe. This story, you see, is a map. It's a guide to the darkest corners of the human heart and the necessary journey through chaos to find redemption. It's about the profound danger of envy, the insidious nature of tyranny, the courage required to face the unknown, and the fundamental necessity of the redeeming principle to bring light back into the world. It's not a tale to lull children to sleep. It's a profound psychological drama, a warning and a path forward if you dare to truly look the Queen. She isn't just a character in a children's story, a simple antagonist defined by a superficial flaw like vanity. To reduce her to mere vanity is to profoundly misunderstand the nature of evil, to gloss over the terrifying depths of human malevolence that this archetype so chillingly embodies. She is the distilled essence of pathological envy, a destructive force that seeks not to create, not to build, but to annihilate anything that shines more brightly, anything that represents a higher truth or a more genuine form of being. Consider the dynamic. Snow White is young, radiant, pure. Her beauty isn't just physical, it's a manifestation of her nascent, uncorrupted spirit. It's an innocent truth. And what does truth do when confronted by falsehood and decay? It exposes them. The Queen's rage isn't born from a desire to be more beautiful herself, it stems from the intolerable reality that another is more beautiful, more authentic, more alive. This is the hallmark of profound envy, the inability to tolerate the flourishing of another, especially when that flourishing implicitly highlights one's own inner rot and deficiency. It's a resentful hatred of being itself, particularly when that being manifests in a form superior to one's own, or at least perceived as such. Her mirror, then, is far more than a simple looking glass. It functions as a merciless, inescapable judgment of reality. It reflects not just physical appearance, but the unvarnished truth of her soul, her accumulating malevolence, her slow descent into a hardened, bitter shell. Each time it proclaims Snow White fairer, it's not merely a slight to her ego, it's a direct confrontation with the fundamental truth of her existence, a truth that she desperately wants to deny, and failing that to destroy. The mirror is the voice of objective reality, an ultimate arbiter that cannot be bribed or deceived, constantly holding up the uncomfortable standard against which she falls terrifyingly short. And what is the Queen's response to this unbearable truth? Does she strive for self-improvement? Does she engage in honest introspection? Does she seek genuine connection or wisdom? No, her response is the classic, chilling reaction of the tyrannical impulse. She seeks to eradicate the truth. If the truth, in the form of Snow White's radiant existence, exposes her own moral and spiritual bankruptcy, then the truth itself must be eliminated. This is the very same mechanism that drives censorship, totalitarianism, and the persecution of dissidents throughout history. It's not about making oneself better, it's about destroying the inconvenient reality that exposes one's own corruption, one's own insufficiency, one's own increasing malevolence. Her obsession with being fairest of them all is not merely vanity, it's a profound pathological need for absolute dominance, a desperate grasp for an artificial hierarchy where she alone dictates truth and value. The existence of anyone superior, or even equal, is an intolerable challenge to her self-constructed brittle illusion of omnipotence. This drive isn't just personal, it's archetypal. It's the dark shadow of control, the desire to impose one's will unilaterally, to bend reality to one's distorted perception, even if it means resorting to deceit, manipulation, and ultimately murder. The Queen, therefore, serves as a potent warning. She is the personification of what happens when the human spirit succumbs entirely to resentment and envy, when it turns inward and begins to devour itself, and then inevitably seeks to devour everything good and true around it. She is the tyrannical ego unbound, unchecked by wisdom, compassion, or the painful but necessary confrontation with objective reality. Her story is a cautionary tale, demonstrating the catastrophic consequences of allowing pathological envy and the refusal to acknowledge truth to fester and dominate the soul. She is the ultimate antagonist, because she embodies the greatest internal foe, the malevolent will to power, that seeks to extinguish the light of genuine being wherever it is found. Snow White. She is so frequently caricatured, reduced to a two-dimensional figure of passive beauty, a simple damsel awaiting rescue. But such a superficial reading misses the profound archetypal significance of her being. She is not merely beautiful in a conventional sense, her beauty is a radiating manifestation of her inherent truthful being. She embodies an uncorrupted innocence, an authenticity, a genuine light, that by its very existence, serves as an intolerable indictment of the Queen's falsehood and decay. Her very presence, her simple unadulterated goodness, acts as a mirror, a more potent and terrifying one than the Queen's enchanted glass, reflecting back to the malevolent sovereign the stark reality of her own spiritual corruption. This isn't just about physical attractiveness, it's about the deep ontological incompatibility between genuine being and profound malevolence. Snow White is a representation of the nascent, unblemished potential of the soul, the pure spirit untainted by the resentments and distortions that accumulate through a life lived without truth. Her existence is an inconvenient truth, a painful reminder of what the Queen has forsaken, what she has allowed to curdle within her own soul. And because the Queen cannot tolerate this truth, cannot bear to look upon it without feeling the searing pain of her own deficiency, Snow White must be eliminated. Thus she is exiled into chaos. The act of being cast out by the queen is not merely a plot device, it is a profound mythological journey. The forest, into which she is thrust, is not merely trees and wildlife, it is the primordial, undifferentiated chaos, the wilderness that lies outside the boundaries of established order and human civilization. It is the realm of the unknown, the terrifying abyss where the accustomed structures of the world dissolve. Here, predictability vanishes, and the protective familiarity of home is stripped away. This descent into chaos is a universal element of the hero's journey, a necessary crucible through which the innocent must pass to confront the realities of existence. Snow White, in her innocent state, is fundamentally unprepared for this confrontation. Her purity, which provokes the queen's ire, leaves her vulnerable to the raw, untamed forces of the world. She is forced to abandon the safety of the known and navigate the terrifying uncertainties of the deep, dark wood. This exile highlights a critical vulnerability of truth and innocence. Without the protection of established order, or the wisdom gained through experience, even the most profound goodness can be exposed to devastating harm. The forest represents the trials and tribulations of life itself, the unpredictable assaults of fate, the sudden turns into terror that confront every individual. And why is she exiled? Not because of her actions, but because of her being, directly by destructive envy. The queen's envy is no mere childish pique, it is a corrosive, actively destructive force, a profound resentment that cannot abide the superiority, even the perceived superiority, of another. This envy does not seek to elevate itself, it seeks to demolish its object. It is a malevolent impulse that arises from the profound self-loathing of the envious individual, projected outward onto that which they cannot tolerate in themselves. The queen's envy is a stark demonstration of how the pathologies of the human spirit can manifest as tyrannical, annihilating forces, disrupting harmony and casting genuine being into the abyss. Snow White's forced journey into chaos, therefore, is a testament to the potent disruptive power of malevolence. It shows us that truth and innocence, while inherently powerful, are not invulnerable. They can be attacked, driven from their sanctuary, and forced to contend with the very forces of chaos and destruction that seek to extinguish them. Her exile is a vivid depiction of the constant struggle between the forces of order and chaos, between genuine being and destructive resentment, a struggle that plays out not just in fairy tales, but within the human heart, and across the landscape of human societies. It forces her to confront the ultimate questions of survival, and the necessity of finding new forms of order within the overwhelming expanse of the unknown, the forest. In the Disney rendition, it's often a place of quaint animals and burgeoning friendships, a temporary respite filled with a light-hearted whimsy. But that's a superficial reading, a dangerous simplification of a profound archetypal space. The forest in these ancient narratives is primordial chaos itself, the undifferentiated, unformed aspect of reality that lies beyond the secure boundaries of human consciousness and established order. It is the antithesis of the walled garden, the village, the castle, all symbols of structured human endeavor. Imagine being thrust into it, not just a pleasant stroll, but hurled headlong into its terrifying depths. This is where the rules of the day vanish, where the comforting predictability of the known world dissolves. It is the unconscious made manifest, the boundless realm of the unknown, teeming with unseen threats and unidentifiable sounds. Here, rational thought begins to fray, primal instincts are awakened. The creatures of the forest are not merely charming animals, they are the wild, untamed forces of nature, both predatory and indifferent. This is where the dragon truly lurks, not just as a beast of myth, but as the embodiment of everything terrifying and overwhelming that threatens to devour the delicate structure of conscious being. For Snow White, exiled from the fragile order of the castle by the queen's pure malevolence, the forest is not a choice, it is an unavoidable descent into this terrifying abyss. Her terror, therefore, is not a sign of weakness, but a perfectly rational response to being confronted with the fundamental anarchy of existence. She, in her innocence, is profoundly unprepared for this raw, unmediated encounter with the unvarnished truth of reality's untamed nature. Her sheltered life has offered no preparation for navigating the sheer unpredictability and potential for annihilation that the forest embodies. It is a place where comfort offers no protection and naive assumptions are instantly shattered. Yet, this chaotic immersion is a necessary crucible for transformation, true growth, profound development of character, and the acquisition of genuine wisdom. Rarely, if ever, occur within the confines of comfort and certainty. It is only when the established structures of one's world break down, when the familiar patterns of life are shattered, that the opportunity for fundamental change arises. The forest, as chaos, strips away all pretense, all artificial security. It forces a confrontation with one's own limitations, with the terrifying aspects of existence that one would rather ignore, and with the deep primal fears that lie dormant within the psyche. This is where the hero is forged. By confronting the overwhelming unknown, by facing the potential for dissolution and death, one begins to discover inner resources previously unimagined. The forest demands adaptation, resilience, and a reliance on something deeper than superficial appearances or societal conventions. It compels a re-evaluation of what truly matters, what one is capable of enduring, and what defines one's core being. Snow White's journey through this harrowing landscape is not simply about survival, it's about the potential for integration of the fragmented self, about learning to navigate the darkness, and about emerging with a more robust and expansive consciousness. The chaotic forest, paradoxically, is the very ground from which new, more complex, and more resilient forms of order can spontaneously emerge, if one dares to traverse its depths. It is the place where genuine being is tested, refined, and ultimately transmuted. Having been thrust into the primordial chaos of the forest, Snow White eventually stumbles upon a peculiar miniature pocket of order, the dwelling of the 7 dwarves. These figures, too, are far more than quaint storybook characters. They represent a specific archetypal manifestation of human coping with existence. They are the collective, industrious refuge, a small functional unit of being that has carved out a meticulously maintained niche within the surrounding wilderness. Their lives are characterized by discipline and purpose. They rise, they labor in the mines, a symbolic descent into the earth, into the material world, extracting value from the raw elements. Their home, though small and seemingly rustic, is kept with a meticulous order, a place where tools are hung, meals are shared, and a routine is rigidly adhered to. This isn't just arbitrary neatness, it's a fundamental act of creating meaning and predictability in the face of chaos. They represent the spirit of diligent labor, the persistent effort to transform the raw material of existence into something useful, something structured, something that provides sustenance and security. They embody the collective unconscious at work, the meticulous, perhaps somewhat rigid, yet undeniably productive aspect of the human psyche that builds, organizes, and maintains a livable reality through sheer persistent effort. They offer Snow White not only shelter but a temporary reintroduction to structure, to routine, to the grounding rhythms of a life lived with purpose, however humble. This is a crucial respite after her terrifying plunge into the untamed unknown. Yet, despite their virtues, their industriousness, their solidarity, the order they impose upon their immediate environment, they are critically limited against ultimate evil. Their strength lies in their capacity for functional order, for dealing with the tangible demands of the day-to-day. They can build a home, mine diamonds, establish a routine, and even provide companionship and a rudimentary form of protection within their sphere of influence. But they are fundamentally incapable of comprehending, let alone confronting, the insidious transcendent malevolence embodied by the Queen. Their world is one of practical tasks and manageable threats, not of archetypal evil manifesting with a profound annihilating intent. Their limitation is starkly revealed when the Queen, in her disguised forms, repeatedly breaches their carefully constructed sanctuary. They are unable to recognize her true nature, unable to prevent her from reaching Snow White. Their warnings, though well-intentioned, are insufficient. They can lock the door when they leave for the mine, but they cannot guard against the penetrating deceit, the cunning manipulation, the sheer force of pure evil that operates on a different plane entirely. This highlights a crucial insight: not all forms of order, nor all forms of strength, are universally applicable against all threats. The industrious, collective effort, while invaluable for building and maintaining civilization, is often impotent against the deeper, more profound, and psychologically sophisticated forms of malevolence. Their ultimate failure to protect Snow White from the poisoned apple underscores this limitation most tragically. They are present, they care, they mourn, but they are powerless in the face of the ultimate life-threatening assault. Their sorrow is genuine, but their practical, grounded approach to life offers no solution for a problem of such archetypal proportions. They represent the profound truth that while diligent work and communal support are indispensable for human flourishing, there are certain existential threats, certain manifestations of profound evil, that demand a different kind of confrontation, a different kind of strength, one that transcends the merely industrious and delves into the realm of the heroic and the transformative. Their order is a good thing, a necessary thing, but it is not sufficient when the greatest darkness descends. The apple, it appears in the narrative as a simple fruit, perhaps even a benign, rustic offering from an old woman. But to understand its true significance is to peer into the very heart of how malevolence operates, how it insinuates itself into the world, often not through overt force, but through insidious, seductive lie. This apple is not merely poisoned, it is the ultimate symbol of malevolent deceit disguised as a gift. Consider its presentation. The queen, in her most cunning guise, approaches Snow White, not with a sword, not with an obvious threat, but with an offer of generosity, a seemingly harmless token of kindness. She plays upon Snow White's inherent trusting nature, her innocent predisposition to believe in goodwill. The apple itself is described as vibrant, luscious, perfectly formed, a visual representation of the alluring facade that so often cloaks the most destructive intentions. Lies are never purely false, their power lies in their partial truth, their ability to appeal to a genuine desire, to promise something seemingly beneficial. Here, the apple perhaps whispers of wish fulfillment, of beauty, of a simple pleasure, tapping into the very human desire for goodness and comfort. This is the profound danger. Radical evil rarely announces itself with horns and pitchforks. It is far more potent, far more corrosive, when it adopts the guise of virtue, when it presents itself as beneficial, as a solution, as an act of charity. The queen's offering is a perverse inversion of genuine giving, a corruption of the very act of nourishment. It is the wolf in sheep's clothing, the friendly face concealing murderous intent, specifically engineered to exploit the trusting heart of the innocent. Snow White, having no experience with such profound masked malevolence, is naturally susceptible. Her lack of cynicism, while a virtue in itself, becomes her greatest vulnerability in the face of such calculated treachery. She has seen overt threats from the queen, but not this subtle, insidious perversion of benevolence. The apple's dual nature, beautiful on the outside, lethal within, serves as a potent metaphor for the nature of the lie itself. It is attractive, it promises comfort or desire, but its core is rotten, its essence designed for destruction. It underscores that the most dangerous deceptions are those that align with our unconscious hopes or vulnerabilities, those that do not immediately provoke suspicion because they masquerade as something desirable. This is why vigilance is so crucial in navigating the world, not just against overt threats, but against the subtle whispers that promise ease while delivering ruin, and the consequence of consuming this disguised lie, not instant death, but a profound, death-like sleep. This is not merely physical incapacitation, it is a symbolic loss of consciousness, of agency, a suspension of active being. The lie doesn't just kill the body, it paralyzes the spirit, rendering the individual inert, unaware, and utterly vulnerable. It's a living death, a stasis that prevents the individual from engaging with reality, from making choices, from continuing their journey of becoming. It demonstrates the devastating power of deceit to remove an individual from conscious participation in their own life, trapping them in a static, unfulfilled state. The poisoned apple, therefore, is a stark warning about the seductive power of falsehood and the necessity of discerning truth from the seemingly benign offers of a malevolent world.